Rosa, I want to start with you, though, on this issue of language and what this country calls a terror attack and what it doesn't. Obviously, it appears after Benghazi, it was not as clear as it was today. I wanted to play an exchange that happened between State Department spokeswoman Victoria Nuland and a reporter. This was about a week after the attack on the American consulate in Benghazi.
Does the United States government regard what happened in Benghazi as an act of terror?
Again, I'm not going to put labels on this until we have a complete investigation, okay?
So you don't regard it as an act of terrorism?
I don't think we know enough. I don't think we know enough.
All right. Here, Rosa, is what Jay Carney said today about the attack in Turkey.
A suicide bombing on the perimeter of an embassy is by definition an act of terror. It is a terrorist attack.
It seems like that's a pretty direct reaction to the controversy about Benghazi.
I think that's absolutely right, Aaron. I think that no one ever said this administration was not a learning organization, and the lesson that they drew from Benghazi is you're never going to make a mistake if you call it an act of terrorism. Frankly, I don't think it matters what you call it. I think the reason after Benghazi they were a little bit cautious about calling it terrorism is because we hear terrorism, we immediately think Al-Qaeda. The important thing to keep in mind is there are a lot of other terrorists out there, and not all of them have anything to do with Al-Qaeda, but that doesn't mean that they can't do us a lot of damage.
And fair point. Obviously, it doesn't appear to be Al-Qaeda. Peter, do you agree with that assessment, though, as to it doesn't really matter what you call it?
Oh, not at all. I mean, we've talked about Benghazi in the past. I think it was critical that the administration came out like they did today when Benghazi happened. And we talked about all the motivations in the past of why they may have decided to parse words or quibble over definitions. But I think it was very important what they did today. And that's what I think they should have done regarding Benghazi. And unfortunately, they just didn't. And we still don't have a lot of answers about those tragic events in Libya.
Rosa, we're just getting some new information in that I think is obviously relevant here. According to our reporting here at CNN's Fran Townsend saying the suicide bomber that did this attack in Turkey was known to American and other intelligence agencies. Again, it seems that we have information and aren't always able to act on it in time. Is this a sign of a failure on the part of the United States?
There's no way to know. I think we've got to wait for the investigation to come out. I think that one of the other lessons of Benghazi is it's a really bad idea to start speculating before you got the facts. You know, it may turn out that we screwed up on this one. You know, it may turn out that this was preventable. On the other hand, I think the good news here is he didn't get past the first checkpoint. You know, the good news is that we weren't able to stop him altogether, but we kept him from doing a whole lot more damage that clearly he wanted to do.
Yeah, Peter, Rosa raises a good point, right? This person didn't get past the first ring of security. Right. That's how these installations are supposed to be around the United States, fortress-like for U.S. embassies. But, you know, I spoke to John Huntsman about a week after Benghazi, and he said point blank, I mean, let me play what he had to say, because I think it's obviously more powerful coming from his mouth than mine. Here he is.
But our consulates, particularly those that are relatively new, as is the case in Libya, some of them are a little vulnerable. And as we continue to shift our relationships throughout the world and provide new outreach to different geographic areas, this is going to have to be a real focus on the part of the State Department.
Peter, are they focusing on this enough?
Well, that's the big concern. But John Huntsman is right. If they are walking the knife's edge, you don't want an embassy to look like Fortress America, and many of them do today. Right. You have to reach out to the people. People need to access it. But in the same sense, we live in very dangerous times, and you got to, maintain your security. Now, when you said this was the first line of defense, this is actually the last line of defense. Your first line of defense, I would say, is intelligence. You know, you want to try to get this guy in his hometown when he's strapping on the vest, not at the embassy. And then outside of the embassy walls, it's really the local police force or local security forces, and you rely on them as well. So you want those layers of security, those rings of security around your high-value facilities. And in this case, it appears, despite the tragedy of 3 people or 1 person dying, that it did work. They did not get inside the U.S. Embassy in Ankara.
And